In a world where people get their superpowers by 18, a 25-year-old woman is yet to discover hers and will go to great lengths to unleash them. 25-year-old Jennifer, or Jen, sits down for a job interview where she horribly discovers she can't lie because her interviewer's superpower is compelling people to tell the truth. Jen reveals she still hasn't gotten her powers yet and has nothing to offer the company, so the evaluator sends her on her way. Outside, Jen looks around despondently as she watches people put their superpowers to good use. After making love with Luke, she invites him to her younger half-sister Andy's 18th birthday, but he's disinterested. After returning from the bathroom, Jen sees Luke flying away and remarks that he does this every time they finish sleeping together. The following morning, Jen's roommate Carrie Jackson observes a case at the barrister's office. Her employer calls upon her to demonstrate her power, where she manifests the soul of Mr. Greenham and allows him to take over her body for a few minutes to settle the dispute between his ex-wife and latest wife. Later, Jen spots a cat outside her apartment building and takes it in. Inside, she finds Carrie's boyfriend Cash wearing a tight homemade supersuit and mocks him. Embarrassed, Cash activates his powers, reversing time to before Jen arrived. He quickly closes the door so she won't see him, and lies that he's been pleasuring himself to deter her from entering his room. Afterward, Carrie arrives and sobs, sharing that the clients always get mad at her and not at the deceased. Jen urges her to quit, but Carrie refuses, saying she has to support Cash, who's still job hunting. Carrie reassures her friend that her job at the barrister's office pays well, but laments when she realizes they're just using her. Jen tries to comfort her, but Carrie misreads it and consoles the former instead, telling her that her real power is being herself. To cheer her up, Carrie summons Adolf Hitler so they can mock him. Jen then receives a text message from her date and leaves. Jen goes to a diner to meet Gordon, who refuses to shake her hand without a glove, as he can make people climax with his touch. Gordon admits that he found out during his father's 60th birthday, when his dad asked to shake his hand after the former won against him in a football match. Elsewhere, Cash and Carrie are on their way to the pizza parlor when the former notices his girlfriend is struggling in her heels. He offers her his shoes and decides to walk around in his socks instead. Suddenly, an invisible man grabs Carrie's phone, demanding her purse. Cash throws his wallet at him and grabs Carrie so they can escape. Jen and Gordon make their way back to her place, but Gordon is adamant that he use his glove when touching her, wanting to prove that he can pleasure a woman without his powers. Minutes pass and a bored Jen fakes her climax to get it over with. Jen is about to kiss him goodnight when Gordon places a bunch of pillows between them to ensure he doesn't touch her. Later that night, Cash wishes to become a vigilante after the exhilaration he felt fighting off the burglar earlier. However, Carrie is less than enthusiastic about the idea as it isn't a lucrative occupation, but Cash seems intent on his plan. The next morning, Jen is about to touch Gordon when the cat jumps beside him. At first, she tries to shoo it away, but in the end, she allows the feline to tap Gordon. Gordon is then awakened by the cat's screams and departs, claiming their relationship won't work, leaving Jen dismayed that she wasn't able to touch him. Afterward, Jen, Carrie, and Cash have breakfast while they brainstorm possible names for the cat and decide on a funny but lewd name. Realizing she's 3 hours late for work, Jen orders Cash to turn back time. Cash asserts he can't reverse time that far back, arguing his powers has limits. So Jen agrees to an hour so she can at least grab some lunch. Jen arrives at her job wearing a ball gown, since she works at a costume for rent store called Party Hamlet. She asks her co-worker Tim to blow up balloons for Andy's party, when store manager Angela, whose superpower is that she remains young-looking despite being 56 years old, approaches and asks about the balloons. Jen explains they're for her half-sister's birthday, and her colleagues complain about turning 18, wishing they never got their powers. Later in the taxi, the driver, who has the gift of foresight, is about to tell Jen how she dies, but decides not to. Shocked, Jen tries to ask more questions when her dad calls her. After telling her a joke, her dad instructs her not to spoil Andy's night with her competitive nature, and asks her to greet her mother for him. When she arrives, the cabbie tells her to stay away from bears before driving driving away. Jen sees that her mother Mary has already bought balloons, to her annoyance. Andy approaches her half-sister to tell her she got a part in the Greenwich Conservatoire, but Jen thinks she's bragging. Andy then tries to figure out what her powers will be, but an embittered Jen tells her she might not get them. The two then argue about Jen's lack of powers, when Mary asks the latter to help her with her tablet. Jen exasperatedly wonders how someone with the ability to control technology can't figure it out. Mary's partner Ian joins them and tries to calm them down by using his powers of sensing emotions. After blowing out her birthday candles, Andy waits for her powers to emerge, but is dismayed when they don't manifest. Mary tries to console Andy, telling her it might take weeks to appear, but Jen mocks her. Upset, Andy heads to the kitchen and Mary follows. Ian then tells Jen she should go to the Discovery Clinic to help bring out her powers, since it worked on his cousin. Moments later, Andy discovers she has super strength when she breaks off the fridge door. As Andy entertains her guests with her powers, a bitter Jen leaves with a bottle of alcohol. She then receives a text from Luke and quickly heads to his apartment. Jen hears a woman's voice and forces her way inside his apartment, where she sees Olivia, his beautiful shape-shifting date for the night. Jen believes she uses her powers to stay pretty, but Olivia says she hardly ever uses her powers, implying she's always been beautiful, much to Jen's annoyance. After Luke takes Olivia flying, Jen forces him to take her as well. Luke then sets her on the ground and breaks up with her, telling her she should love herself before loving someone else. Later, as Jen walks home, she calls her dad and laments her lack of powers. Her father comforts her, telling his daughter she'll get her powers someday. When Jen opens her bedroom door, she sees Carrie summoning her father, implying that her dad has passed. The next morning, Jen and Carrie go to the Discovery Clinic for a consultation. However, Jen is mortified to learn that the packages are too expensive and decides she'll DIY unleashing her powers instead. Days later, Jen, Carrie, and Cash plan to draw out her powers by inducing stress. They go to an Indian restaurant, where Jen orders the spiciest dish on the menu. However, it doesn't work, and a reddened and sweaty Jen runs to the store to chug a gallon of milk, where she stumbles into Luke, who's buying stuff for his date with Olivia. He grows concerned over her appearance, but Jen brushes it off and rushes to an aisle to drink. However, the owner says she has to buy the gallon first, and Jen realizes he can see her on the security camera feed. The next day, Carrie and Cash accompany Jen to her workplace, where Cash picks outfits for his vigilante group. Angela approaches them and learns they're helping Jen discover her power. Angela then shares that she discovered her ability when she caught her husband sleeping with another woman, and agrees that stress can help induce it. As Angela leaves, Carrie has an idea. Later, Carrie takes Jen to the dentist, and her friend immediately bolts. Carrie drags Jen inside and calms her down. Minutes later, Jen heads to the office, where she hears ominous music playing. The dentist informs Jen that her power is to make people generate their own soundtrack around her, and surmises the latter is afraid of dentists. At home, Cash calls an ad agency about putting up a billboard for his vigilante group. Meanwhile, the cat suddenly transforms into a man and struggles to walk upright. He tries to call out to Cash and scratches the bedroom door for attention. Cash hears the scratching and opens the door, but all he sees is the cat. He takes the animal to Jen's room and continues the phone call. At the dentist, the doctor is surprised to hear Jen's ominous music change to smooth jazz when she checks her mouth. Jen apologizes, and to clear the awkwardness, the dentist tells her she has nice teeth. However, the doctor sees that some of her teeth need fillings, and Jen's soundtrack immediately changes to an ominous one. Bothered, the dentist gives Jen a pill to calm her anxiety. At first, Jen disapproves, because she needs the anxiety to bring out her power, but she immediately takes the medication when she sees the syringe. In the waiting room, Cash calls Carrie via walkie-talkie to ask if they should commence Plan B. Carrie assures him that Plan A is going well. A dazed Jen emerges, and a mortified Carrie calls Cash to commence Plan B as Plan A has failed. Later, the duo waits outside, when Cash, who's dressed as a masked IRA terrorist, arrives and stuffs Jen into the trunk of his car, hoping to induce stress. When the couple buys lunch, Jen leaves Luke a voicemail, admitting her love for him even though he's emotionally unavailable. Inside a deli, Cash and Carrie discuss what to have for lunch. Unbeknownst to them, the car is getting towed. Moments later, they realize the car has gone missing and search for it. Carrie calls Jen and tries to get her location, but her friend keeps sending her pictures of Philip Schofield. Annoyed, she yells at Jen to send her pinned location. Cash then comes clean that the car is his mother's and he doesn't have a driver's license, so he won't be able to retrieve the car from the lot. After sneaking inside the impound lot, Cash realizes he doesn't have the car key. Carrie also realizes Jen's medication has worn off. As 4 hours have passed, Jen wakes from her stupor and immediately starts panicking, demanding the pair get her out. Cash attempts to open the trunk but fails, so Carrie asks Jen to call Andy, as they need someone strong to get her out. Later, Andy arrives and smugly requests Jen to ask her nicely. With no other choice, Jen complies with her wishes, so her half-sister rips and tosses the trunk hood with ease. Jen is about to beat her up when Carrie stops her and thanks Andy for helping them. A car horn then blares, and Jen is horrified to see Mary and Ian there to take them home. Afterward, Mary admonishes Jen when the latter remembers she left Luke a voicemail. Meanwhile, Cash asks for money from Carrie to pay for his mother's car's damages. Jen then asks her mother to delete the message, but Mary accidentally plays the voicemail via the car's Bluetooth speakers, and everyone hears the embarrassing message. Andy then tells Jen she should spam him as a distraction, with Mary suggesting she send lewd pictures. As soon as Jen gets home, she sends Luke multiple provocative selfies when she suddenly sees that the cat has transformed into a man. At first, she is horrified and bolts from her room, but then deduces that she might have turned the cat into a man. The couple rushes to her, and she informs them that she has a magical chest, claiming she can turn animals into humans. However, the cat man argues that he's a shapeshifter that got stuck in his cat form. The naked man then embraces Cash, relieved that other humans can see him. Later, the trio interrogates him, but the cat man has amnesia and only recalls that he went to school and got a job before constantly changing between a cat and a man. He also recounts seeing the football game where the Spurs beat Arsenal 4-2, and the trio realizes he's been stuck as a cat for 3 years. Afterward, the cat man lies on Jen's bed, despondent over the revelation. Cash books an Uber for him, but Jen wants to keep him, saying they can't just abandon him. However, Cash is firm that the man is only staying until they figure out who he is. Carrie then gets up to make tea for her when Jen gets a text from Luke, stating he likes the pictures but finds her voicemail weird. Later that night, as Jen walks outside, she spots a dog. Jen quickly flashes her chest at it when the dog's owner turns the corner. She quickly covers herself up and explains to the bewildered bystander that she was only making sure her chest wasn't magical. The following day at breakfast, Jen and Carrie watch the cat man struggling with a can opener. Cash walks in and attempts to help him but fails. Later at work, Jen has a run-in with an angry customer whose Margaret Thatcher mask is stuck to her face. Afterward, Angela scolds Jen for her lack of customer service. Jen urges Angela to fire her, but the latter sees her potential and wishes to make her manager when she dies. However, Jen tells her that this job is only temporary, but Angela points out that Tim said the same thing and has now worked there for 7 years. Elsewhere, Cassie allows the soul of Valerie Gold to take over during a proceeding. Valerie refuses to sign a label deal that'll place her music in elevators of every cruise ship and wants to make a comeback instead, against the manager's wishes. At home, the Catman enters one of the rooms where Cash orders him to get out, since he's about to interview potential vigilante team members. The Catman requests to observe the process because he wants to learn how to be human again. Cash accepts, stating he's doing it for the city, but the Catman informs him that Jen thinks he's only doing it because it gives him the illusion of control over his pitiful existence. After the proceeding, the manager asks Carrie to moonlight for their label, which she enthusiastically agrees to. At home, applicants come in one by one and showcase their powers. One applicant, Seb, who can summon sea creatures but can't command them, claims he has a wealthy father. Another interviewee, Ade, can phase through solid objects but gets his hand stuck inside the wall. Randall can 3D print objects through his bottom and demonstrates his ability by squeezing out a figurine. The last applicant, Gregor, is a speedster who runs to the Tate Modern and grabs a postcard to prove his powers. Later, Carrie enters the recording studio, where she's tasked to someone called Callahan, a famous 80s country singer, to finish recording his songs. Afterward, Carrie calls Jen to come down to the studio for moral support and promises to give her a salary cut. Jen tells her roommate that she needs to have someone who can handle people and get her decent deals, when an idea strikes her. Jen then arrives, claiming she's from Jen Regan Talent Management and that Carrie is her client. She negotiates with the manager and is shocked that the label is offering Carrie £300,000 for the gig. Jen then asks the manager to wait for them outside, and the two roommates rejoice over the offer. At home, Cash prepares the living room for the first ever vigilante meeting when the Catman hands him a dead pigeon for their snack. Horrified, Cash sends him away to do grocery shopping, going against Jen's instructions not to let him out. At the studio, Carrie summons Colt when they learn that the singer is challenging to work with and extremely misogynistic. Meanwhile, Cash welcomes the new members when Gregor takes over and writes on the whiteboard. They talk about what kind of crimes they should fight, but Cash interrupts the speedster because he feels he's taking over his position as the leader. However, he lies that he was only looking for a marker, so Randall offers to 3D print him one. Elsewhere, the Catman struggles with the overwhelming experience of shopping for women's sanitary products and faints. The vigilante group then discusses what they'll do if they save a woman. Gregor volunteers as a leader because he respects all women, but Cash asserts he's a better fit because he's more knowledgeable about women's anatomy. At the store, a clerk helps the Catman better understand sanitary products with a book on women's anatomy. At the studio, a crude Colt asks Jen to help him refresh his memory with his old songs, and he disappears. Carrie goes over the lyrics and discovers its contents to be mostly racist and misogynistic. She then tells Jen she feels uncomfortable with the gig, but the latter urges her to push through with the singing for the money. Carrie then tweaks the lyrics a bit, claiming that Colt won't notice it anyway, while Jen leaves for a massage. In the apartment, Seb draws the female anatomy on the whiteboard so that Cash can prove that he's an expert. Fortunately, the Catman returns from the store, and with his newfound knowledge on female anatomy, helps Cash label the illustration. At the studio, Colt sings Carrie's revised lyrics and is furious over the changes. Afterward, the dejected Jen and Carrie head home after the label fires them. Although Jen is proud that her roommate stood up for her beliefs, she's still dismayed that they lost the chance to earn £300,000. They then hear noises coming from the other room and find Cash and the Catman playing a board game the latter made up. Later that night, one of the applicants, who can randomly turn into a magnet, returns to the apartment to retrieve her umbrella. Suddenly, the Catman sticks to the woman, who flippantly remarks he could be microchipped.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.